If you're just joining us, we've been having a great show. We're talking about sleep paralysis, what it is, and why as a Christian you should be concerned or even know about it.
That is a nightmare, more terrifying than any other. A nightmare that has haunted thousands of people all over the world.
It felt as if there was a male presence there who was evil.
I can remember seeing this figure in the doorway.
A presence comes into the room, paralyzes its victim. Sometimes it's a shadowy figure, sometimes an old hag, sometimes a demon. But whatever shape it takes, the entity, as it is often called, has concrete effects, leaving its victims battered and exhausted, their lives in pieces. Sufferers are sure that when they see it, they are awake, and it is real. Science, psychology, and religion have all grappled with this phenomenon. Can any explain the mystery of the entity?
I'd like to know how many of you have ever woken up unable to move or cry out. Can't move a bit, can't say anything. Or sometimes it might happen just as you're about to fall asleep, but you're awake and you can't move. Sleep paralysis is the experience of awakening, unable to move. Or sometimes it happens just as you're about to fall asleep, suddenly finding yourself unable to move but not yet asleep. And it's produced by a physiological mechanism in the brain that's well understood. What is not understood is why at least somewhere around 80% of people in sleep paralysis have this very complex, strange, subjective experience that we've been discussing.
You know, at the risk of sounding like a total freak and a total weirdo, I'm going to put this out there so that if someone else is going through it, then they won't feel so alone. For me, that was the case. I didn't really tell a lot of people about this thing that happened to me because there was kind of like, I felt really weird about it, like why is this happening to me? And, you know, people are going to think I'm such a weirdo. And what I learned was, in my research, was that sleep paralysis is actually a very common phenomenon, okay?
What is sleep paralysis? According to one definition, sleep paralysis is a phenomenon in which people, either when falling asleep or awakening, temporarily experience an inability to move, and it is often associated with terrifying visions. In almost every case, there is paralysis, the inability to move. This occurs in even the most mild cases. In addition, almost all experiencers report the feeling that there is an evil or menacing presence in the room, even if they don't actually see anything there. This feeling has been called felt presence by the scientific community and is reported in nearly every case of sleep paralysis. Recent studies have shown that 6.2% of the population has experienced this at least once, though there is reason to believe that the numbers are much higher than this. Other studies have shown that almost 30% of a randomly sampled student population has experienced sleep paralysis.
You actually think your eyes are open. You actually think you're actually up, and you're not. So you're kind of caught in between the sleep world and the awake world. If your kids walk up to you and tell you, "Mama, I woke up this morning and I couldn't move," take your kids seriously.
Was completely frozen. And my eyes were like open, but I felt unbelievable fear and terror like I had never felt before. Like there was an evil presence in my room. It was awful. And I could feel that there was something there in my room, and it was behind me. And I was so terrified and just literally paralyzed with fear that I could not turn my body at all. I couldn't even bring my finger to even twitch. That's how frozen I was in sheer terror.
A colleague of mine, a psychiatrist, also interested in sleep paralysis, did a survey of professional psychiatrists, giving them a description of a perfectly typical sleep paralysis episode with the frightening presence, etc., and asked people what they made of it. Over half of them diagnosed it as a psychotic episode. Most of them thought the person was schizophrenic. That's appalling.
The reason they say that people hear, see, and feel all the scary things that they do during sleep paralysis is another story altogether. Here again, they admit they do not know why this happens, though there are a number of theories that they propose. To put it very simply, they say that seeing, hearing, or feeling something odd during sleep paralysis is caused by something they call felt presence. Felt presence, again, basically means that a person feels as if there is a presence in the room with them. This presence is almost always described as evil in these studies. Basically, they say that once you feel that this presence is in the room, you become afraid, and this fear causes you to make that felt presence a reality in your mind. If you're thinking that it's odd to essentially say that hallucinations are caused by a hallucination, you are not alone. I think it's pretty odd too. If we were to assume this is true, however, then the next logical question would be, if the hallucination of an evil presence is the core cause of the other hallucinations, where does the first hallucination, felt presence, come from? The short answer is they don't know, but again, they have some theories.
There's a spiritual dimension, so as my body is fully physically sleeping, my spirit body is completely awake and is having that interaction and that encounter with this, demonic energy or whatever it is. So I'm just saying, like, when it comes back, and it might come back, I know exactly what to do, and I'm not going to be fearful.
Right from the beginning, I was convinced that ordinary people are smarter, are more sensible than they're given credit for by scholars, and that traditions that are widespread and deeply held probably have more rational basis and more observation built into them than the theories that I was taught in graduate school. Not by any means all. Certainly there are lots of traditions that have serious logical and other errors in them. But I couldn't believe that all of the beliefs of ordinary people that are not part of the academic worldview were therefore nonsense. In fact, I had the impression that academic worldview might be just a little too narrow.
I suggest that it is just as logical of a hypothesis to say that the reason that people feel a presence in the room during sleep paralysis is because there actually is a presence in the room. In my opinion, this would account for all the things that happen to people during sleep paralysis. I also believe that such a hypothesis can be shown to have scientific merit. But because scientists in the West start their research with the strongly held belief that there is no such thing as a spirit world, this idea then must be denied from the outset. I would submit that the denial of the spirit world without being willing to consider it as a possibility is not being true to the heart of the scientific method. It is simply a belief that they happen to hold. I think that we don't need to rely on our feelings about the spirit world if we want to test the hypothesis that sleep paralysis has a spiritual cause. I think there are a number of ways that this view can be shown to have merit, beside the fact that it would explain all the things that happen during sleep paralysis. The primary way is that sleep paralysis can be shown to have a spiritual solution. In other words, when you treat this problem as though it is caused by an evil spirit, using the methods I will outline in this book, it goes away. That in itself should be considered interesting by the scientific community, and at the very least, they should endeavor to discover why such methods for stopping sleep paralysis work from their anti-supernatural perspective, which is something I don't expect to happen anytime soon.
We've talked about the different doors that allow sleep paralysis to come in. It allows the spirits to come in and attack you while you're sleeping. But now we want to talk about the authority that God has given us to fight against demonic activity.
My faith is so much stronger, and I really, truly believe that it's because I said Jesus, and then Jesus one more time, and the thing was, boom, it was over, and it was so quick. Afterwards, I felt like victorious, Jesus is on my side. You know what I mean? I kind of, always knew that there was a God, and yeah, this is what Jesus did, but I didn't really develop the relationship, okay? So that's the difference. It's not enough to just know intellectually. So that's my crazy story on sleep paralysis, the, medical term that the society calls it, because, people will want to give it a name. If they don't understand, they're just going to give it a name, like a medical term. But in actuality, it's spiritual warfare.
For now, however, we will focus in on the person of Jesus and the way that demons reacted to him. The authority that this man named Jesus claimed to have over these spirits is extremely rare in all of history.
You are tuned in to God's Property Radio. Here are your hosts, Sam and Dan.